All right, everyone, is interview time, and we are here with guest Meleah Manning. All the joy and all the love to talk about breakups and how to heal joy and love, right? And
That was a shit sandwich right there.
that was a shit sandwich. And how to heal from toxic relationships. And we have done breakup episodes in the past. One we did the day after I went through a breakup. Remember that one? I was like just fresh out of my heart was just smashed the day before. And also we did one with Dr. Allison Ash. We also did one with, was it Kate Lowry? Was that the one?
Yes,
yeah.
Kate Lowry on.
That was more like healing from narcissistic relationships. So this one's going to focus on just breakups in general, whether you had the best relationship ever, but it's still breaking up and you're sad.
That could be divorce as well.
Also known as divorce.
We did one about divorce years ago.
Yeah. Divorce is a major breakup.
It's a breakup with paperwork. That's what I call
expensive breakup. And and very common. Actually,
it could be lucrative for some people.
Fun fact, by the way, yesterday someone told me that the stats for divorce in Santa Cruz has the highest divorce rate in California.
Santa Cruz County,
where we live.
Go,
yeah, interesting. Anyways, that's not what we're here to talk about.
Well, my partner's been married twice, so he probably helps those.
He helps the stats. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank you, partner.
And divorced twice.
So whether you are in a relationship and you're not breaking up, but maybe someday you will. Maybe you have had a breakup before and you are still healing from it. Maybe you're in a toxic relationship or coming out of one. This will have information for you. Maybe you have a friend who's going through breakup and you'd like to know how to support them, because that's also hard to do too without being a biased asshole. Fuck them. Anyways, so let's dive on in. You all heard a little bit about Meleah already in the bio, but Meleah, welcome to Shameless Sex. We're so happy to have you here. And can you please tell our listeners a little bit more about how you got to where you are today in the field of sex and relationships?
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me. So how did I get here? I mean, really, it was my own experience of going through some really bad breakups and divorce, actually. So, I got married when I was 18 years old, which is crazy. It was about 11 years ago.
Well, 18, damn.
I know.
You're a child.
Did anyone tell you not to do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. My family, my friends, they were like, probably not. And I was like, I'm going to do it, And I really bought into the whole fairy tale of it. And the person I was marrying, he really sold me on that, and he was in the military. So it's like, oh, everything's going to be taken care of. And I'm going to take care of you. And so I bought into it, So reality set in and the relationship became quite traumatic, quite abusive and unhealthy. And, I was so young at the time. It took me a while to understand that wasn't okay. The behaviors weren't okay, that they were toxic, and I played into that as well. I wasn't totally innocent. So when it eventually became physically abusive, that was kind of the wake up call I needed to be like, this isn't okay and I need to go. So I did go, and thankfully, I had the resources I needed at the time to support me. My family was supportive. They were also like, told you so,
Oh,
but I did my best to move on. I didn't know what I was doing. I was 20 at the time, 21. So from there, it was this cycle of unhealthy relationships. I was trying to cope. So I was drinking a lot. I was numbing a lot. And I would attract partners who were either unavailable or, emotionally, or they're already in a relationship, whatever it might be, or they were really passive. So, I didn't know this at the time, but I would do that because it felt safer for me to kind of have the upper hand and have control in the situation. So, eventually I went on this whole, the eat, pray, love journey. I moved to Costa Rica, I moved to Bali. And thankfully,
what about Italy? Did you hit Italy too? Yeah.
I hit Italy.
Nice.
Yeah, I totally did. I had to do that. Yeah. So, so then I was exposed to some incredible teachers and guides. I had the whole awakening experience, and then there's just this moment of taking ownership. I chose to not be the victim anymore. I chose to step out of why is this happening to me? Why are men so awful? And step into, wow, I'm choosing this. Whoa, I play a part in this. So kind of took the steps to heal my attachment wounds, to heal from the past. And it was incredible. Now I'm engaged to an amazing man, and we get to have a really fulfilling relationship. And so when I went through that, I was like, if this is possible for me, I've been in some really unhealthy spaces, then this is really possible for anyone. So yeah, I began to study it. I studied psychology. I became trauma informed, became certified as a relationship coach. And now I get to do that today and like really guide women through that process that I went through, and be able to level with them, of like, I get it. It does suck. It is hard. And when you realize you're choosing it, you can choose something different.
Mm-hmm. Even if breakups are like, if they're looming, because sometimes people know it's coming, or divorce, they're like, I got to come to terms with this. It's happening. Whether it's them initiating the divorce, or they just feel that there's nothing left to, they need to cut off the dead toe before gangrene sets in, right?
Oh yeah, no,
that's that's how I look at it sometimes, because it can.
I was thinking like kicking the horse while it's like so dead, but just keep kicking that.
Like, it's not going to do anything.
No.
To hurt further,
not bringing it back to life.
That horse. Yeah. So, and sorry, this is the thing. It's not even divorce. It's also relationships. Sometimes you, as you mentioned, you were in several toxic relationships until you figured out that sometimes the toxicity you can be a part of yourself, right? You can contribute to that in your own way. And because I always believed that I have something to do with any of the relationships I've been in and the toxicity, because certain triggers that come up. But the point is that I'm sure if anyone listening out there has ever been in a relationship or is in one, that you have toxic moments. But when does it become a toxic relationship, right? So how do you define a toxic relationship, and what are the signs someone might be in one? Is it like Dexter gloves and like, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I like the way you phrase that, because even the healthiest relationships can be hard. And there are moments where you have these unhealthy behaviors of like accidentally gaslighting your partner, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're now in a toxic relationship and you're toxic. I think the main thing that sets the two apart is the amount of ownership a person is willing to take. So when we look at a toxic relationship, some of the characteristics or the behaviors we'll see, one thing that is pretty obvious is this like really intense ups and downs, hot and cold cycles, this push and pull. I'll pull away my love to get you to chase me. And then, oh, it's back. And yes, we're back together. Or he pulled away his love. And now I'm like, no, I want you, even though I know it's not healthy. So these really intense ups and downs. And then some of those behaviors are going to be gaslighting, manipulation, control. And, I think when you start to become a person that you don't like, when you're not proud of your behavior most of the time, it's like, yes, a healthy relationship, you can have hard times and you can make mistakes and your shit's going to come up. You know what I mean? But you're still willing to take ownership, because in gaslighting, for example, one of the behaviors we see, gaslighting is this consistent, no, that's not what happened. That isn't right. That's invalidating someone's experience. Whereas if I were to take self-ownership, I could say, oh, I really didn't mean to hurt you, but I see that I did. And I'm sorry for that. But when we're in that toxic space, it's like, I don't want to see myself. I don't even like the person I am. So I'm going to blast and project all my stuff onto you. You hold it, you carry it. So yeah, I would say the main thing, like the intense ups and downs, the kind of roller coaster, push and pull, and then you'll see consistently those unhealthy behaviors, the gaslighting, the manipulation, the control. It doesn't mean it's all bad. That's the really confusing thing about toxic relationships or an unhealthy relationship. It's not all bad. There's love there. Like you have fun together.
Sex. Hello. You're
hot.
Like, yeah, that's fucking great.
Totally.
It's not a good cycle.
Not always. Yeah. Serves a time and place
Yes,
and a
it does.
purpose, but it's not all the purposes. I like that. I mean, that's so clear and concise, because I think it can be hard for people to look at. And So of course there'll be people like, oh yes, all those things you're saying, Meleah, but what about all the good moments? But there's also this, and this, and they have this. I have a number of friends where, and I was that person when I was in a really toxic relationship for 5.5 years. That I will say there was, and I want to say there's a difference between toxic and narcissism, and we did an episode on that. So, but I identify as someone who is in a highly narcissistically abusive relationship, and I chose to be in that for lots of daddy issues, and so different. I don't think just toxic necessarily means narcissist, but I was doing the thing that a lot of friends that I see who are in relationships that seems way more painful and tumultuous than it is easy and loving and positive. But every time they share the pain, there's like this, but they're also so great with X, Y, and Z, and we have this and this, and like they're just believing in the good. As to me, it seems like, and also if someone used to do that, it's like the way to mask and cope with the fact that my subconscious knows that there's so much that is not good. And so this is a question I didn't really have for you, but I used to say to myself, at least if it has to at least be 50% of the time, joyful, easy, loving, peaceful. But now when I look, I'm like, that's fucking bullshit. Like 50%,
like, I want 90%.
Yeah. So now I'm more like at least 80% of the time, if not more, to feel that the really good
Once you
stuff.
live with your partner, though, it kind of shifts.
Yeah, well, but even within that, though, I think even with that, I'm speaking of the toxic shit, the roller coaster. It's not just like, babe, you left the dishes in the sink again.
Dishes in the sink again. That's not
talking about that. I'm talking about the
you would just clean them anyway.
Yeah, I would just be like, fuck, I'll just put them in the dishwasher, whatever. I don't even know how to use a dishwasher. I'm so bad at it.
You are the dishwasher.
I'm terrible at washing dishes, but I do it anyways. So what do you think about that? Like, not dishes, like like, I mean, this is just up for your own opinion. Like, it's up to everyone to decide this. But what would you, for you in your life, what would that look like? The statistics. We love numbers.
Yeah, I would say, I'd say 90%. And it's a little bit hard because we each have our own kind of subjective of like, this is easy, this is hard, this is good, this is bad. But I would say in a healthy relationship, like people say, when when you find that person, there is a sense of ease. Even when you're having challenging conversations, even when all your shit's being brought up and you're having to work through childhood wounds, like there's a sense of stability, there's a sense of trust, there's a sense of I'm safe here that kind of carries you through those times. So I'd say, yes, it's like the percentage, but it's also like the intensity level in a way. And not to, like, fighting is fine. Like, we all fight and we have arguments, but it's like, am I sitting here screaming at you, calling you names, telling you these terrible things? Or am I saying, hey, I'm hurting and I need you to hear me? There's a big difference there.
Totally.
I think that's this is something that I've taken from Esther Perel's work. We've talked about it. When relationships, if they have a healthy cycle, and granted, there can be toxic moments, right? I know that I can be toxic in moments for sure, where I just spat things and I'm like, that is definitely my inner angry April coming out, like my childhood, like, oh no, love me.
I've seen it before.
Yeah. However, there's this cycle that if you can get into and doing the work to not go into your dark toxic self when it comes out, if you feel like you contributing to that, that's like the harmony, disharmony, and repair. And because it's always a natural, it's the cyclical nature of relationships, right? Even friendships, but in partnership, that repair is so important, and how you're repairing and not blaming, right? Mm-hmm. You're taking accountability for your things. You're actually doing something to hopefully shift what you are. And I still slip back into that shitty space of me saying mean things. And I'm like, why are these words coming out of my mouth right now? April, stop. So. But
you are good, at least when I've experienced with you as friendship, you are good at coming around and being like, I'm so sorry about
that. Right.
It might take a little bit of time, but she's always says
throws you some hard shit. And I'm sure, Meleah, you may agree with me here. And if not, that's okay too. But like, when you're not in a good space outside of your relationship, whether it's work or there's something draining you energetically somewhere else, your health maybe is failing or your kids are stressing you out, and you take it out on your partner a lot. They're the snappiest ones when you live with them too, because they're always there to love you. So the point here is toxicity in relationships is hopefully it's manageable, right? But not being in a toxic relationship with someone that's like sucking you dry. You're like, oh my God, the energy, it's like the vortex. So if this is the case, I hope it's not. I hope everybody's going to be in a good one. So let's say or I know someone, my friend of a friend, is in a relationship let's just say it's me. I'm in a relationship that's not so good for me. I'm a smart human. I'm listening to this podcast. Do you have tips for exiting a painful, hopefully it's not abusive in a way that you're scared for your life? And I'm sure you'll have something to offer there, but tips for exiting a painful relationship and then rebuilding after. And that's a pretty loaded question, but good luck. There it is.
Yeah, there's a lot there, because each relationship, each experience is so complex and nuanced. But I think overall, leaving a relationship is incredibly difficult. And something that comes up a lot is it's easier to stay. There's a level of comfort already built. And so these thoughts of like, I'm going to have to start all over. Do you know, I was 20 when I got divorced, and I had the thought of, I'm going to have to start over. Who's going to be out there for me? I was 20 years old. Like, it doesn't make any...
fishies in the sea.
Right.
Yeah.
You're like a baby bird that just cracked the egg.
Truly.
But still, that thought's there.
So it doesn't make logical sense, but it happens. And it happens when there's manipulation at play, like these things can happen, right? So I like to speak about this because it normalizes it. And those that are experiencing it, can be like, oh, okay, like, this is what's happening. So it's hard to leave, right? But when you are, becoming a version of you that you don't like anymore, you're losing trust in yourself, you're losing your sense of self, it's time to go, So I think what's important to realize is when we leave a relationship, when we go through a breakup, we are now not getting that kind of dopamine hit that we are used to getting in the relationship. When they text us good morning, or they kiss us good night, or they tell us we're beautiful, or whatever, or we fight, all of that kind of is this dopamine hit. That's stripped away. We're going to miss it. What happens in our mind goes to all the good memories. So you can have all the reasons to leave this relationship. It's not good for you. But when you leave, the memories that pop up, they're not going to be the bad ones. They're going to be the good ones. So it's going to be a process. You're going to have to really work towards rewriting this experience. I tell my clients, write down why you're leaving. Like when it's really fresh for you, like, this is why. This is what I don't like about myself or my experience or the partner. This is who I want to be. This is why this is important to me. So that it's there and you have evidence of it. You can come back to it.
Meleah, so when I'm in a fight with someone, like usually I think of all the bad stuff. So maybe when next time you're fighting with that partner, you can write down all those things that are on your mind. Cause I never do that. You always think of the bad stuff. You can't think of the good stuff then. I'm not like, well, and then one time he bought me flowers. So totally. I was saying, right? That might help. That's what I was just thinking. I was like, yeah, gives you ammo.
Yeah.
Totally. Great tip. I love that. Yeah.
I'm going to do that next time you and I fight, April.
I'll be whiteboarding over here, Amy.
We're going to need a whiteboard in our studio. Exhibit A. You didn't give me a hug when I saw you.
Yeah. And it's interesting, how the brain works like that. But yeah, that's important. And that's why we go back to our ex, and there is a level of like, this is comfortable. This is familiar. I don't want to have to start all over. And now like with dating nowadays, like no one wants to date. Everyone's like convinced there's like no one out there, which isn't true. So really coming to terms with, this is why I'm leaving and this is what's next for me. There's also a process. There's your self-worth is really impacted in an unhealthy relationship. So that sense of self is going to be really, really low. So your work is focusing less on what he's doing and getting him back. And
or
more,
she, because this probably applies both ways. Them,
yeah.
right? Like there's
all of them.
No matter what, it applies to all humans.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
And keep up with your lingo. I'm just saying that.
yeah, absolutely. And focusing more on yourself, right? Because your thought process is going to go to that person. You have to redirect it to yourself. And that we see, often people in toxic relationships, they might experience codependency, or they already have low self-worth, which isn't a bad thing. Like, these things are not inherently bad. They're just natural. Like, we all have to kind of navigate them. But if we have that awareness, then we can say, okay, wow, I do really need to work on that process of redirecting that attention back inward.
Yeah, I can identify with it. So I had this interesting experience when I left the really toxic relationship. Well, there was how much? God, did we break up like 5 times? April was like once a year for 5.5 years. There was a breakup that I was not choosing.
I changed the title on the podcast episode you recorded with him to former partner.
Yeah,
said Amy's partner.
So he was on our podcast once, actually.
Yeah, and I was like, why is he on our podcast?
When we were still together.
Yeah.
Like, we don't take episodes down ever.
We would never do.
Yeah,
we never do.
But
I changed it to former partner because I was like, no, it's time you're moving into. He's still with us, but he's not with.
And blessings to you, sir. Yes. Thank you for whatever you're doing. So, but there are multiple rounds of breakups where I felt addicted to him, and I know. So I have codependent tendencies. I don't identify as codependent, but who was it? Jason Gaddis, codependent-ish. Remember that? Yeah. Where he says we all can be codependent-ish, but some people, I think it's a deeper
how thing. How you slept together, like meaning like
he was
how
like a drug.
Right.
Yeah.
She was like, have you ever had that? And I didn't understand at the time, and I was
I had sleep issues already too. So
sleep.
But when we're not doing well, sleeping next to him was like a nightmare. So
elbowing.
No, I was highly anxious the whole time. But anyways, but when we finally broke up again, like for the 5th time, where it still wasn't my choice. It was like this laundry list of all the reasons why Amy's not a great partner that would come around, and which is the gaslighting, manipulation, brainwashing. I got really lucky in one, like within 5 days, my system naturally just let him go. And I literally felt like he was a drug that was out of my system. Never once thought about being with him ever again from that day on, which was amazing. So I was so addicted to him for a long time. I also got really lucky because even though I had felt a lot of the brainwashing, manipulation, I didn't actually think I did have to do a lot of personal work around self-worth. I knew I was fucking awesome, but that was my childhood. My mom taught me that. I was raised with a lot of that. Not my dad. My dad didn't do a good job with that, but hence why I dated that guy. But my mom did a really good. So I had that backbone. What I had to do though was to learn how to naturally be able to be Amy again, like from the way I walked to the way I talked, to the tone of my voice, to the things that I did, the behaviors and things that I didn't even realize I had shifted to work around someone else.
And you were still friends with him right away. And then
for like a year or two. And then I was like,
and then you're like, no, because you realized
I started to, it took me a while
from yourself.
It took me a while to realize how angry and hurt I was. And
I was like, why is he coming to a party? Damn it.
Because we're cool.
I thought he was gone. But I was like, all right, fine.
So I don't want to necessarily just make this all about me. In that, I just wanted to bring to like the self-worth piece here. Like, I think it's different for everyone. For some people, the self-worth piece, my guess, is a really big thing. Like, you are probably building, like you don't even know who you are. You don't think you're lovable. To my experience of knowing that I am, but I still had to find who am I again, even though I know I'm fabulous. Like, who's Amy now? Because I had changed so much of that and had no idea that I did that. And it feels fucking awesome. And then to date a partner who's like, why are you apologizing for like dropping that thing and making a sound? I was like, oh, I'm just so used to, like, I needed to do that. And he's like, I don't care. Why are you apologizing for moving in your sleep? Like, oh, because someone had a problem with that for a long time. So anyways, that's my long version of that. If you have anything to say about my long story of the self-worth piece.
No, I think that's important because, I think there's a process we go through to step back into that sense of self. And that sense of self is always evolving, isn't it? It's like, it's not like we've one day find it and like, here we are, it's like this process of letting that unravel and letting that kind of burn down. And then we have to rebuild it. And like, that's natural, and I think what you're speaking to is important because there's, I would say, I don't want to say always, but let's say 90% of the time, there's going to be a root to why you chose that partner, why they felt familiar or addictive, and so you want to understand what that was. Maybe it was the daddy thing for you, like you said, but there's something there that if we can identify, we can build trust in ourselves that I don't want that anymore. Like, I don't need that to fill that void anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the dad work came from that during that relationship and after. And it makes perfect sense. My dad was not, emotional. He was present, but he was an alcoholic and not emotionally there in a way where I could be like, Dad, I'm sad. I need support. It was just like, it wasn't that dad. And so then that was my, I started to choose these like strong dominant men, but dominance doesn't always come with, narcissism or narcissism and selfishness are very different. But anyway, so I had to uncover that and go on that journey with a lot of therapy, like years of therapy. Yeah. And I'm so grateful for it because I feel really free of that. And yes, I'll always have work to do.
Absolutely.
We all do. Who does
so much?
Yeah.
I'm like, can't we just flip a switch at some point and everything's great?
But that'd be boring.
I mean, I don't know. I could take some boredom from time to time. Fuck's sake. So, okay. I want to premise this question with a statement, because one thing is, if you've been in toxic relationships, that's not to say that all people are bad. Like, oh, all dudes are shitty. Because I hear this from my friends. All chicks are crazy, or all people are like, I just can't. Like the isolation piece, which I think you spoke to a little bit.
Anyone,
right? And because they've been jaded, perhaps parentally, perhaps in a relationship or 2 or 3 or 4, and so they lose faith, or they've been ghosted. And this is not about how to at all like move after you've broken up. This is not about that. However, I've just lived that so many times with friends that are single, and the dismal nature of where their attitude goes towards breaking up with someone that's shitty, because out there exists nothing more than more shitty. So basically I want to inspire folks out there I'm going to invite you to think outside of that box. Amy's a great inspirational thing.
The shit box.
Amy it's like meeting new people. So that's the first thing that's a statement that I want to say before I ask Meleah, who is an expert in this, which that's why I appreciate. So the breakup's coming. Okay. It's there. It's done. Okay. It's done. No. We're done. What are your top tips to heal from a breakup? And how can I not let the breakup just break me into pieces?
Yeah. Well, I think first, just recognizing breakups suck. Like, they're not this like, well, I guess they can be a beautiful experience, but I think as humans, we want to avoid pain. Like, we're like scared of pain and suffering and these difficult emotions. But in my work, I think those more difficult emotions are okay. Like, who decided they're bad? Why are we so afraid of them? So when we can become more okay with allowing ourselves to feel pain, or to feel heartbreak, or to feel discomfort or challenging emotions, we're not going to be so terrified of a breakup. So there's something beautiful about cracking open. There's something beautiful about your heart feeling so much. So I think when we're talking about unhealthy, I'd say any relationship really, there's a process of grief, of course, right? So what's interesting about that grief process is sometimes you're not even grieving that person. You're grieving the potential of that relationship, what that relationship could have been, what that person could have been. A lot of
expectations that you were let down from. That makes sense. That makes so much sense. But we were going to have
I had all these ideas.
We were going to go to parish.
Exactly.
And buy 5 babies. Yeah. We were supposed to get a dog.
Exactly. And it's like, I think as women, we have a way of like really seeing the best in, I guess all people could have this quality, but like if you are in a relationship with someone, you're like, look how great they could be. If they just stopped this habit or stopped calling me this name, like they'd be great. So we have to also grieve like what it could have been if they did change, or if things were different, or we did last, the potential of it. And that part is confusing. And I don't think it's bad. I think that's part of the healing process, is to grieve not only the person and what is, but what could have been as well. And I think it's really unrealistic to tell someone like, stop thinking about it, because can.
I've heard people say that. I'm like, yeah, thanks. That's not helpful at all.
Yeah, I'll get right on that,
Yeah, just press a button. So easy.
So I think it's normal to think about it, but I think we can also reframe the way we think about it. we don't have to be so hard on ourselves, or we don't have to, I wasn't good enough, or we can change the way we think about it and change that narrative to be more helpful and supportive to you, rather than all men suck. No, there's no other women out there, whatever it might be. It's like, that was hard. This is really hard for me, and can't wait for the next one, like a little bit more hopeful, a little bit more supportive.
I like this. Something came up for me, a big question, because this has been something that since I was a kid, that I feel like my mom, somehow, I'm not blaming you, Mom, if you're listening, but always saying you can't be with someone based on their potential. You have to be with them based on what they're like. Not, I don't want to say giving you. Advice. It is, but I'm wondering if because I've lived that through friends as well. I'm like, they have so much potential to be amazing, or a partner. I'm like, wow, you're so brilliant, but you just always are sucked into. So do you agree with my mom? I don't
like you're saying to choose to be with someone based on who they are now, without not hoping they'll be something different.
Right. Like the potential of who they could be, or who you see them to be, or who they want to be, because that's a really tricky, I don't know. And I don't know. It just occurred to me to ask you, because I feel it and I need direction here.
It's like a dating.
Yeah.
Tip.
What do you think?
What do you think? Yeah, we'll take it.
I think your mom is on to something.
Yeah, Mom.
I think that it's also a little bit complex. So yes, like we definitely don't want to be in love with someone's potential. The danger there is now I'm trying to change you to be that potential that I want you to be. I'm not even in love with who you are. That doesn't feel good for you. It doesn't feel good for them either, right? So that's a slippery slope, but I do believe it can be healthy. Like for my partner, for example, I see his magnificence. I see what an incredible person he is and all his potential. I think he could do anything he wanted to. So I see his potential, but I'm not more in love with his potential than I am who he is today. And like, he's a human who makes mistakes, Yeah. And so it's like, we want to kind of inspire a partner to reach that potential, so we need to see it and believe in it. But I don't want to be more focused on their potential than who they are today.
Okay,
I love that. Yeah, it's like so. One thing that I appreciate about my current partner is that he like loves my greatness, like my growth in the podcast, and just in the April and I just wrote a book, and he is just so, but that's not why he's with me, but he's not threatened by it. And all of it is like, how can he just finds it so beautiful, attractive. And how can he support that?
You don't get a TV deal by November.
We're broken
up.
We're
done. Your potential, you're not living up to your potential.
Yeah. So, but like, I like the word you use, magnificence. You see this greatness in someone, but it's not like, it would be one thing if I was like, so I'm thinking about writing a book and, I'm broke and I'm working at the drugstore here. And I'm just, maybe someday I'll get there. And if he was like, going to date me because he was so set on me being so great, but it was not really something that was already like on my path or something like that, then he might be disappointed and let down. And I think we see it less with that, but more so we see it. Well, no, we do see it with like the broke ass thing. Like that is the thing.
I've just experienced it in my marriage when I was married, because I was married to someone and he was an amazing human being,
total sweetheart.
It just like could never live up to his potential, and I wasn't with him for his potential. I was with him because I loved him. And I'm not specifically calling this situation out. I have just a history of really valuing people for their potential. And I think maybe that's why my mom said this so young, because even friends, I was like, they keep letting me down. She's like, you know what?
That's who they are.
Might be time to go. So thank you for addressing my childhood wounding issues.
And it come from other things, like, so you start dating a person, or like when I'm the one ex, you remember in the very beginning, I was like, April, I think he's just naturally a really selfish person. But like, is it, I can't change that and hope that changes.
Right.
And I stayed in that relationship and look where it got me. So, so those kind of like really big core value pieces, I would be a little more dangerous. Coming back to the tips about breaking up, what do you think about, like, so just like kind of like some basic ones of like, what can I do right now if I'm losing my shit? We're broken up right now. And like, for me, I found what's really helpful is to surround myself with friends and reach out and tell them I need love and support. But I know that's hard for a lot of people.
I can't do that.
It's hard.
I'm like, I need to isolate and not see anyone.
April's also, you're a pretty prideful person too, though.
I have a fucking ton of pride.
Yeah,
sometimes I'm like,
and I'm more like,
that's not a great thing. Yeah. I'm like, no.
What about like a couple, like, applicable
therapy is what I usually do. That's not good either.
Do you have any other like quick applicable couple of things of like, what can you do right now if you're going through the breakup of that could be helpful?
Yeah, I'd say two things. One, feel your feelings, so like I think we have a tendency to want to like numb, the feelings, like kind of what I was saying earlier. It's like, I don't want to feel anxious. I don't want to feel afraid. But what if you were to just kind of let yourself feel them? Because if we stuff them down, guess what? They're going to come back up. Or if you stuff them down, you're probably going to go back to a relationship that's familiar of the past. So you want to feel it. You know what I mean? And you might need support in doing that. That's totally okay. You might need to call your best friend. You might need to call your mom. You might need to find a therapist or a coach. Like if you need support, that's totally natural. Like I have a therapist, like it's totally normal, And then the second thing is really focus on filling your life with things you love. So kind of going back to like finding that sense of self again. If for you, it was, I need people around me. I need my community. And then for others, I know I need to isolate. I need to maybe go to a yoga class by myself. Like reach for things that help you feel more like yourself. And if you don't know what yourself feels like, because it's been a long time since you felt like yourself, do different things and see if you like it. Like I worked with a client, she's like, I don't even know how to do that because I don't know what it feels like to feel close to myself. So she bought a bike and like started bike riding and she's like, I love this. And I would ask, why do you love it? Like, how do you feel? And she would describe it. I'm like, okay, that's how you know you're connected to yourself. So you might have to try things. Some clients are like, okay, I'm going to date myself and I'm going to go sit at a restaurant bar and like take myself there on a date. And then they come back, they're like, I hated that. I don't ever want to do that again. I'm like, cool, don't ever do that again. Let's try something different, So you might have to try different things and that's okay. Like let yourself explore.
I started painting pictures of my dog.
Love it.
I got one
I painted one of her dog and I bought a guitar and started learning how to play like this
after a breakup. Yeah.
Because I was like, it was like a separation that was really brutal. And then I would just sit at home by myself often and I never lived by myself. And that really helped. If you have kids, you could really drop into your children too, or nieces, nephews, godchildren. Or your dog. I did drop into my dog all the time. Like I painted like 3 different
She's actually really talented.
I didn't know. I don't recommend acrylic. It dries really quickly. So it's hard to really get the depth. But I love that advice about doing things because people, I do know the unhealthy practices. I was drinking more because it was easy and accessible and it helped me numb the pain. I also don't really love smoking cigarettes, but I was like, just give me whatever.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I'll change smoke cigarette. And I'm like, oh no, I don't feel good. And when I started shifting to practices that were healthier, actually doing a meditation or a daily journaling.
That's when you got really into meditation.
That's when I was meditating every single day, no matter what. Yeah. And then journaling and then making notes about what I was expecting. Who was I calling in as a partner? Yeah. What was I calling in for a life? What was my life look like? Mm-hmm. And these are all big things, but breakups are a death of something, right? That can trigger these mass life change ups that sometimes you need. Sometimes it's like necessary for you to kind of like dig the earth so that the new flower can grow.
Mm-hmm. I think that when you said the new flower, is that death something and an opportunity.
Yeah,
an opportunity to majorly learn. Like what didn't work, what did work, what do I want, who am I now?
Dating another douchebag, like just like to give yourself time and space,
but reflecting on that. Okay, so I have a question about this. Is kind of part of like the post breakup thing though. It's hard for a lot of people. Okay,
it's a good one.
What if my ex moves on really quickly? And I'm freaking out. How can I work through this?
Should we beat him up? Just kidding. Just kidding.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is hard, like again, I don't want to sugarcoat anything. Like it that sucks to see the person that you loved and you were with move on quickly. And what I would ask you is when we really look at the situation, right? So have your moment of freak out, right? Call your friend, vent. Now let's sit down. Do you really want to be with someone who isn't choosing you? And why do you want to be with someone who isn't choosing you? Mm-hmm. There's something to look at there, and this is a sign that you're still focusing more on him or her or them, more than yourself. Because if you're focused on yourself, you're like, good for them. Like I'm doing my own thing. So and the reality is like that person is going to bring all the behaviors that you didn't like into that new relationship with this new person. Like he didn't just magically become the best partner in the whole entire world. Like there's still those qualities that you didn't like. So
especially if they move that quickly, like really, how much work did you do in that short amount of time?
Yeah.
Also, it could be a direct jab at you if there's posting this stuff on social media. That's a clear indicator that probably shit's not great. And
people only post all the good stuff. So
or they post the fake shit that they want everyone to think is good
to get a reaction. Yeah. Right. And it's like, you don't have to allow that to create meaning about you.
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't mean
interesting. People personalize it to be something about you. Instead, it's not. It doesn't have to be, right? Like it isn't always about us.
It says more about him or whoever the person is than it does about you. It doesn't mean you weren't good enough. It doesn't mean you're not pretty enough. It doesn't mean whatever. Like you get to create your own meaning. Like you can say, I dodged a bullet, like what meaning do you want to create?
In the comment section of those photos. Looks like I dodged a bullet.
You say that on their profile?
Yeah, on the post comment. Be like, looks like I dodged a bullet there. Have fun. Wishing you good luck to you. That's being passive aggressive. Yeah, you could be like, I mean that. Dodged a bullet. Blessings.
That's not passive aggressive. That's just true.
That's just true.
No, you have to make your best friend make the comment.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So me for April being like, looks like April dodged a bullet.
Exactly.
No, it'd be like, at April, looks like you dodged a bullet here. Thumbs up, smiley face. And then just do like a dot, like, can't wait to go to Portugal. Be like, yes, see?
Just have a full conversation on this person's comment section.
Yeah. That's not crazy at all.
No, that's totally healthy.
So we're not saying to do this, everyone.
No, we're not.
You can think it in your friends, though. Thank God I dodged that bullet.
Exactly.
Social media, though, does really, and this isn't even, I'm not formulating a question, but I wonder in your expertise, because that can be a very intense and also really hurtful and really like a great tool to fuck up people's emotions on the side after a breakup. And even with the blocking and all of it, come on, it's not that hard to open. It's like not difficult to do.
It's probably still smart to block if you're still feeling the emotional turmoil. So like not be looking at their social media,
that's what I'm saying. People can't help themselves. And that being said, like, is there a break that you suggest, especially in terms of social media? Because we didn't have this problem 40 years ago, 30 years ago with breakups. It was like, oh, my neighbor, you might get some photos in the mail, some shit went south. Yeah, but it wasn't like everything's in your face all the time and people are so connected all over socially. So any suggestions? Is there a time frame or a advice that you have for folks out there, especially around that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think healthy boundaries is important. Like you are going to need space from the person to fully kind of move on. I think sometimes people want to remain friends, or it's like, oh, it's fine. I'll just he can still be on my social media, because they want to kind of have that closeness or that control, or just like people often feel like I need to know everything because then I'll have more control, because we're afraid of the unknown. Like we're afraid of that void, which is what a breakup brings up in us, is the void of like what was is no longer, and I don't know what's yet to come. It's so uncomfortable. So I think healthy boundaries are very important. I think if blocking helps you to kind of maintain those boundaries for yourself, like your priority is you. What do you need to take care of you? If it helps you to have them blocked, if you need your best friend to remind you, hey, I know you're going to unblock him, like go ahead, block him again. Like have people on your team to kind of keep you accountable. I don't think you don't have to never talk to him again. Get
a voodoo doll with an image.
We did that. We did that.
I put the name on ice.
This is for April's.
Yeah. I was like,
oh my God.
Oh, it's happening.
We took a voodoo doll.
I never did anything where I wanted
his face on it. We actually put a photo.
We put a photo of the face, and then I pinned it. I was like, you'll never get another erection again as long as the pin stays in you. And I like put it in his heart and I said, you're going to have a broken heart.
We gathered like 4 or 5 women together for this ceremony.
It was pretty bad. And then I put his full name on and I rolled it.
Oh yeah,
my French friend. I put my French friend. She's Parisian, and she's like, "Après, you know what we do? Everyone that pisses you off, you stick their name on a piece of paper and you put it on ice." And I was like, "What the fuck does that mean?" And she gave me a demonstration. So I rolled up the name and I put it, and she's like, "My grandmother has like 60 different people on ice in her freezer." I was like, "Oh my God, that is crazy." And now I do that. People piss me off. She said it ices their energy. I actually did that after Inspire, but I did that actually with a photo of my dad, who's in my life somewhat. He has dementia, but like I have a lot of pain and hurt with him. So, but the icing that I took from what you taught me, April, what your French friend told you, was you no longer get to affect my being anymore. Right.
And so you're on ice. It's not that like you're dead to me, but it's just like you don't get to be
you're stuck in my face. Energetically cuts them off, which
I like that.
Certain practices like that are they feel really good at the time. Like I never go into moving anyone. I don't want anyone to be like dead or maimed or anything bad like that.
Don't key any cars, people.
No. I don't want to slash tires, but I never did it. I wouldn't have done it. But I
talked her out of it. She wouldn't have done it. I know we have to wrap up soon, but what is your suggestion to people who still want to have sex with their ex? Because that's a big thing. We want to keep having sex with our ex, but we're breaking up. But like break up knowing they're going to stay broken up. But maybe, like, what do you think? Good, bad? All thanks.
I would say, I'm not here to say something's good, something's bad. I'm not here to pass judgment, but for your own well-being, if you truly want to move past this and be available for someone who is going to treat you right, it's not the best thing to do. We think that sex can be this very casual thing, but it's crossing a lot of boundaries. And especially for women, sex really opens up our heart and opens up the emotional centers. And we're actually intertwining. So you're talking about icing out energy. Well, now in sex, we're intertwining your energy. I'm welcoming your energy inside of me.
Like literally. Yeah.
So literally. Yeah. So how am I going to move on? And then it creates this hope of like, it could be this, it's not a way to actually move on. And it's most likely not going to be the best thing for your well-being. Have I done it? Fuck yeah, I've done it. Wouldn't recommend it.
You got to learn the hard way sometimes, you're like,
it's like pulling the Band-Aid off slowly, and then you put the Band-Aid back on, but then you pull it off slowly and it like hurts even more.
It's a dirty Band-Aid. You just put a fresh one on.
Old nasty Band-Aid.
Oh, it is dirty.
Slightly sticky.
But it still feels kind of good.
But it still kind of feels good. It's protecting that wound. Just enough. Well,
oh my God.
The insight, it's been very insightful because I think that the wisdom that you've shared is crucial for folks that
can't relate to this at some
point, right? At some point, even if it's past stuff, or even if you've been in a relationship for 35 years or 65 years, and you don't want to admit it, like there's shit that comes up that can be, maybe that's a toxic flag. Maybe we need to look at how to communicate better so the toxicity removes it. And that's the thing. There are ways to mitigate and also to propagate newness in the relationship realm. So if it feels toxic and you talk to your partner about it, you communicate, you seek support from someone like Meleah, who I know that you do, which we're going to get to. You can you work with folks and you can help folks that are navigating difficult relationship spaces and more. You love when I say "and more," right?
No, I'm the one that says all the time.
I know you do. I just did that for you. And I guess this is in general, this is an inspirational podcast recording because we've all been there, or at some point we might be there. And going back to having resources is really important. And sometimes you just normalizing certain aspects of what I've done in breakups was helpful too. So thank you. With that, please let people know where they can find you. I know you are a certified trauma-informed relationship mentor. You have a bunch of different
you don't just work on
credentials.
Breakup stuff.
No, you do a lot. So how can people find you and work with you? And also any where they can find you on social media. I'll like your comments and sell you meet me in Portugal.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm on Instagram. It's at Meleah_Manning. My website is sistersthatstray.com. Hopefully the spelling of all that will be in the show notes, perhaps.
Yes,
definitely.
Okay, good. And so my favorite way to work with women currently, I do pretty much work with women in this program. I work with men on a one-to-one basis. But my favorite way currently is Radiant Relationship Academy. It's my mentorship program. I run it about 3 times a year. So if we're not open for enrollment right now, we probably will be soon. And this is a space for women to really start to look at some of these patterns, the root of like, why am I choosing these partners, and why am I reacting this way, and why am I shutting down when I really just want intimacy, to really look at that and understand how to overcome it. And then for those who are single, they'll learn how to attract a partner who's emotionally available, ready for commitment. And then those who are in a relationship, they get to learn how to deepen that relationship, how to improve the communication, how to, love their partner in an even deeper way. So it's really beautiful. That's all online. And then if you go to the website, Sisters That Stray, we have a retreat coming up in Colorado in October, and we do in-person workshops all over the state. So like every month, every other month, we have some sort of workshop going on somewhere in the state. So that's just a few ways to connect with me. And I run my business with my sister, my blood sister.
Oh, is that why it's Sisters?
I know.
Yeah.
Where did Sisters?
I thought it was like women who are strained from relationships.
I was thinking like cats, like, hey, let's get together.
Yeah.
Even
I
if you're
thought it was
feral.
like cheating and affairs and
I
shit.
did. I was thinking like stray, like, hey, I don't know. I loved the name. I was going to ask you, I was like, where did it come from, Meleah? So it's you and your sister. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. We both run the business, and then there's kind of different programs and whatnot we have. But at the retreats, the workshops, we're both there facilitating.
I think it's fun because you're like, hey, it's okay if you stray.
Yeah.
Like, guess what?
Yeah.
And
funny story.
Yeah.
Let's look at that. Funny story. We started as a travel blog. So that's where Sisters That Stray came from. And then we transitioned into more of, coaching, and we were like, hey, like it kind of works,
Totally.
We'll just keep
Hookups
it
on the road. Guess where we're traveling now?
That's like my old email.
We're gonna stray.
My old email address from high school was
I am bald nuts.
It's Ms. Bald Nuts.
Oh yeah.
And it still exists. And I was like, well, I'm just gonna keep it. I may have like 8 email addresses, but like that's one of them, MZ Bald
I have
Nuts.
that
Don't give that up.
I'm never giving that one up.
Don't give that up.
The Sisters That Stray is way better. Okay.
Sisters That Stray. Yeah. I was totally gonna ask it. So that's good. Amazing. And we'll absolutely have these links in our show notes. So just obviously check out shamelesssex.com. It'll be the newest podcast that pops up with Meleah Manning, who gave incredible relationship advice and the deterioration of relationships and so much more. And your offerings are incredible. So any retreats are great. If you're going through a breakup, this is one thing that when I was going through a breakup-ish, it was too pandemic-y, right? There was not a lot happening. And I'm like, I don't want to be in my house. I want to go somewhere. So I think it's great that if you are even on the precipice of going through a relationship shift, it's a great tool to go to an in-person retreat and meet new people, get out there, get informed, be your best self, and then go home just a better version of when you left. So I love a retreat idea. And now we can actually do those in person again, which is cool. So check out that at sistersthatstray.com. Thank you, Meleah, so much for listening, for sharing, for being here with us.
You're awesome.
And I'm not breaking up with you anytime soon.
We're doing this in the long run.
I'll come for your comment section.
Yes. Only all good
comment section.
Thanks so much for having me. Loved it.
And to all of our listeners, you know how much we love you. Share your love too. Check us out, Spotify, and also on iTunes. We just need your reviews because it helps folks out there find this free resource. That's right. This is free. All you have to do is listen to the ads. It's still free, and you can actually fast forward the ads. We don't recommend it because we like the products that we share, but it helps people find Meleah Manning and then the other amazing guests that we have on our show. And we are particular and we choose wisely, and we want to bring you all the resources that you need to have I guess what you visualize for sex and relationships, whatever you visualize for sex and relationships in your life, if it's consensual, of course.
And we want 5 stars, and you can just send an emoji. But some people have been just doing like this is the best podcast ever.
Yeah.
And then you give us 1 star. So I think
this is the podcast ever, best podcast ever, 1 star though.
Folks aren't understanding the star process. So please just pay attention.
And Spotify, you actually, all you have to do is listen to an episode and then you don't have to write anything because they don't allow you to. You just rate it.
That's it.
5 stars.
So
and
easy.
The only reason that we actually need to bring our Spotify ratings up because I don't know. We don't have a lot.
I know there was another issue with
there was another. We're not going to get into that with anyone out there right now because this time is precious. The last thing I'm going to say is that I love you. I know Amy loves you too. I think about you all every single day of my life and I care about you. And thank you for joining the Shameless Sex Revolution or being a part of it. We'll see you next Tuesday, y'all. Ciao for now.